I want to share with you a forgotten secret of joy, and if you pay attention and do what we talk about, it will increase your joy level. We go back to the book of Psalms, verse 51, and David cries out to God and says, "Make me hear joy and gladness, that the bones you have broken may rejoice." Verse 12, he says, "Restore unto me the joy of your salvation." The joy of my salvation. I've lost my joy. He didn't lose his salvation. He lost his joy of his salvation. What's going on here? The context of this psalm is it's about a year after David had committed a terrible sin. He'd failed to take his responsibility in going and leading the army. He had lusted after a woman. He had committed adultery with that woman. He had arranged for her husband to be killed. He was eaten up with guilt inside, and that guilt destroyed his joy. You know, every time we sin, it's like a brick between us and God. Now, God is the source of joy, and sin creates a wall that blocks us from God and from that joy. So we don't experience joy. The flow of joy in our life gets cut off because of sin. Listen to me, guilt is a terrible, nasty, negative thing. You need to learn to deal with guilt, because if you don't, studies tell us it will negatively affect your mental health. You'll have higher levels of depression, of OCD, of PTSD. You'll have higher levels of these things if you have a lot of guilt in your life. Guilt is like an alarm going off in the back of your mind that distracts you. If you're eaten up with guilt, you can't focus on what you're doing because you have this thing playing in the back of your mind about your guilt. If you have guilt in your life, it's going to keep you from stepping into joy. It's going to keep you from stepping into life. You're going to not have the energy and the passion for life that you would have had otherwise. If you're deep into guilt, it's going to be like a chains around your ankles and around your wrist. It's going to keep you in bondage from really going for God and going through life the way God intended for you to do. If you're heavy into joy, it's going to cause you to want to punish or sabotage yourself. You will feel like you don't have a right to succeed or the right to be blessed because you know that you have guilt in your life. You have sin that hasn't been dealt with. When you have guilt, if you've sinned against another person, it's going to destroy and distance that relationship with that other person. And the last thing guilt will do to you is it will literally weigh you down. They've done studies and they've found that people that are guilty actually think they weigh more than they truly do. Why? Because it weighs you down so much. It makes you heavy. It takes your energy. Guilt's a terrible thing. Psalm 51, David describes all the agony of his guilt in his life, and physically, emotionally, spiritually, all the negative things. But he opens the psalm with words that you and I need to pay attention to. He says, "Have mercy upon me, O God, according to your loving kindness, according to the multitude of your tender mercies. Blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity. Cleanse me from my sin." Every so often I like to take my notebook and I make a list of every possible sin that I have committed or one of my family members has committed. And I just make sure I've confessed, not just that I'm a sinner, I haven't just confessed sin, but I've confessed sins. And I go in detail, and I just go through the alphabet, everything that begins with A: arrogance, anger, apathy, addiction. Everything that begins with A that could be a sin that I might have committed, I confess to God. And B, and so forth. And I can tell you every single time I feel clean, I feel lighter, I feel closer to God, and I have more joy in my life. I encourage you, take some time, get alone with God, confess sin, get right with God, tear down the wall, and experience the joy. If you like this type of Bible teaching, I'm Dr. Dave Earley, and we have a Facebook page that you can follow us on, or you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you'll get consistent daily Bible teaching that will help your spiritual life.